Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be talking all about university grades. So whether or not you're looking for that first, that 2-1, that 2-2 or third, today we're going to look at, does it even matter? So without further ado, let's roll the video. Okay, so welcome back to another video on my channel. For those of you who are joining me for the very first time, a massive welcome, and please make sure that you hit the subscribe button below and the bell to be alerted as to when I post new content. For those of you who have been with me from the very beginning or even from more recent videos, a massive thank you for all of your support. But again, please make sure you hit the subscribe button and make sure you share these far and wide. This channel is all about helping you as physiotherapy students out there and new grads, and to ensure that I can pass on some of the experiences that I've had to help you. And I do, looking back at these, wish I had some of these when I was at university. So today we're going to be talking all about grades. Whether or not you're looking for a first, that 2-1, that 2-2, that third, or even if you haven't even thought about it, then we're looking at that. And we're going to talk about how important these grades actually even are. So to kick off with, at university, you're doing a degree in physiotherapy. When you finish those 3 years, as long as you pass everything, you'll come out with and graduate, and you'll have that piece of paper that says you have graduated. That piece of paper, no matter what grade it is, enables you to apply for your registration with the HCPC and get your PIN number. And that PIN number is your entry into the career. It gives you the ability to work as a physiotherapist. It gives you the ability to apply for your Band 5 jobs in the NHS or privately or with sports teams, etc. out there. Now, talking of NHS trusts, they are only looking for that HCPC registration. And if you think about it, they don't need to see your degree certificate, because that HCPC registration tells them that you have a degree, because you can't have the HCPC registration without the degree. Now, most trusts, and as far as I know, all trusts, but there may be some difference out there, I'm not sure, but majority that I know of don't even ask for your degree certificate, let alone what classification you got. So I applied through NHS jobs for my Band 5 post. I got my interview, I started working, and at not one point in that time did they ask for my graduation certificate, my university certificate, or what classification I've got. And the majority of people that I work with have no idea what classification I got. It doesn't make any difference to them. What they're looking for is to make sure that A, I'm legally allowed to work as a physio, but also that you're safe and you're there to do a job. And that comes back to looking at, does it really make a difference? So in that scenario, it doesn't make a difference at all. Now, this video is not about telling you to forget the grades and just don't care and it doesn't matter at all, and that I don't want you to look at that at all. Far from it, because a lot of you out there will care and will focus on those grades. And if that's what motivates you, it's fantastic, because it motivated me. But what I'm doing by putting this video out is hopefully going to alleviate some of those anxieties and those stress levels that can come alongside these grades. Because as physios, we do tend to be more perfectionists, and therefore we strive to be the very best. And sometimes our very best is hung on any one of these classifications. And I think that's not quite accurate. It's not always an accurate depiction of how good you are as a physio, because we're all very different. And it's really important that none of us, and when you're at university, not to compare yourself to anyone else. Just because so-and-so in your class is getting an 80s and 90s doesn't mean that you're any lesser of or going to be any lesser of a physio because you're getting 50s and 60s. Actually, at the end of it, things tend to level out. And certainly as you go through your career, remember you're at university for 3 years. That is a drop in the ocean in time of how long you're going to have a career and how long you're going to be able to develop as a physiotherapist. So your degree classification you get 3 years, a 3-year shot at that. But when you graduate, you then have a whole career to become a great physio. And we all develop very, very differently. Also at university, there is always going to be that academic element, regardless of how much the universities do try and make it practical and relevant to the job that you're going to be doing. It's a degree. There are going to be academic elements to it. And a lot of us will struggle with some of those, and that's absolutely fine. Everyone will have their different areas of strengths and things that they struggle with. We all do. I did. I was terrible at essays, but I found my strength in placement and the practical OSCEs and vivas. And that's where I focused. I realised that, okay, essays weren't my bag, and I potentially could have spent more time getting better at essays, but I chose to get through my essays and focus on my strengths and get my grades really through my strengths. But what is really important is that whilst you're at university, you're looking to gain the knowledge to become the best physio you can be, not the best student or the best academic you can be. So when I was doing my essays, for example, no, I wasn't necessarily aiming for the highest grades in my essays because I knew that was going to be really hard for me to do. What I did do with my essays is I looked to make sure that I gained the knowledge that I was meant to from that assessment. So I used the learning outcomes and the marking criteria just to ensure that I was gaining what the university were aiming for me to gain from that assessment. And remember, our modules and assessments aren't there to judge us. They're there to ensure that we are gaining the knowledge to then take into practice when we qualify to be good physios. And that should always be your number one aim. So if you're going through that essay aiming to try and make sure you get the best grade, sometimes you'll get feedback that isn't quite what you wanted. And I saw it time and time again when people put a lot of effort and time into fighting grades and percentages that they thought were unfair and didn't represent what they thought they'd done, when they could have been moving on and learning in the new module and new assessments, and then taking that feedback and thinking, okay, right, well, let's move that and push that into the next assessment. And I kind of really do strongly advise you do that. So the next thing is, does getting a first make you a better physio? Now, I think we've probably started to allude to it already. And I'm going to talk from experience now and say that I don't think it does. I don't think having a first automatically makes you a better physio. I think there are some amazing physios out there, lots of amazing physios out there who got a third. And that comes back to that element of developing at different rates. I.e., some people will spend 3 years learning the rope, learning their craft and gaining their skills in certain areas. And then when they graduate, that will continue and it'll snowball and they'll just become great physios. Some people at university will excel at being at university and will get a great degree, and then they'll carry on and they'll become great, and everything sort of levels out a little bit. And some people will go on and excel and be phenomenal. But what I'm saying is that initial 3 years, again, is a very small chunk of time. And you shouldn't be pressured into becoming the best physio you can be in those 3 years, because you've got a whole career to develop into the best physio. So pinning all your hopes on this first or this 2-1 isn't always the most healthy way to go. Striving for excellence is great, but depending on that classification to prove yourself as excellent is an absolute no-go in terms of a healthy 3 years at university. So I've seen Band 8s, Band 8As and A and Bs who have got 2 2s and 3rds. It does not hold you back from gaining great career progression. As I say, people develop after they've come out of their degree into great physios. And some students that have struggled at university and not done so well, I've seen people with patients and they're just amazing physios. Their care, their empathy, their handling, their ability to talk to patients, and ultimately that's what we're there to do and spend our time doing. It's superb, and all the skills and the treatment and assessment, they come with experience, and which you gain more of after you graduate. It's a bit like driving a car. Actually, we become better at driving a car after we passed our test than prior to passing our test and learning. In fact, we're pretty terrible even when we passed our test. We learn afterwards. So there are loads of successful physios, certainly in the NHS, but out there. Only you have to look at some of my interviewees on this channel to know they didn't all get firsts, yet most of them are internationally recognised physios and superb physios, very high up in their career. And I don't even know if any of them, I think one of them may have got a first. But again, it doesn't correlate. It does not at all. They found their passion, their niche after their university degree, and then poof, off they went. So what does getting a good classification do? Because otherwise, why have them if we're not aiming for them? Well, there is an element of having a first class honours degree, I think potentially is going to give you early on a very solid knowledge base and skill base to draw upon as you go into your band 5 role. It just means it maybe gives you a bit of a head start in that knowledge and research, clinical reasoning, your critical analysis of things, and that ability to appraise research quite easily and quickly, be able to implement it into practice. But again, if you're not getting the basics right first, then all of that is not as useful, actually. You need to get those foundations done properly. And I do think in your 3 years of university, just getting those basics is actually the most important thing. You can get onto all of the other stuff later on. Absolutely fine. So it does potentially give you that in-depth knowledge and that's almost quick access to information and knowledge rather than having to do a lot of revision. However, I would say that you can, when you start your band 5, you will be going back to your textbooks, back to your lectures, back to whatever notes you've made, because you'll realise that during your degree in the 3 years, it's really spread very thinly across all of the subjects. We cover so much within our degree. It's one of the most intense degrees that you can do. So therefore, we just haven't got the time to cover everything in depth. So you'll have a patient with a condition and you'll find yourself down a rabbit hole finding out all the information. Then when you start talking to the doctors and the consultants and the nurses and the occupational therapists, the speech and language therapists, the dietitians, podiatrists, the amount of knowledge within the MDT of these conditions is phenomenal. And they'll be your textbooks. And if you've got a first, you'll realise how little you know when you start talking to the MDT, because it's just the reason they're there is because you don't need to know everything, no matter how inquisitive you are. So experience really does count for an awful lot within your career. So the next element of your classifications is when you want to go on and do further academic study. If you want to go on and do a master's and a PhD and go into research. Now, the majority of master's programs will ask for you to have a first or a 2-1 or a 2-1 and above. There are certainly master's programs out there that have lower eligibility and criteria for you to enter onto those programs, but the majority, and to give yourself more of a chance of getting onto some of those programs, you would be looking to get a 2-1 or above, and a first is really going to give you much more of a guaranteed place. At the same time though, you still need to be the right person and have those right skills, which again, like we've said, this doesn't guarantee you those elements, those interpersonal skills. So if you're going to look to do academia and you want to go into research, or if you've got a master's program you really want to get onto, talk to them, make sure you know what their criteria is for getting onto those courses, and then that gives you a bit of a focus as well. But again, focus on being a good physio first, and these kind of classifications, grades will come. The next area I want to cover on degree classifications is placements. So I strongly believe that placements are really the one area where you want to leave the classification hunting, grade hunting at the door, because they can be a huge blinker on your experience on placement. If you're so focused on your grade and that percentage, you'll get so stressed and so worried and wound up and anxious that you probably won't perform as well on placement, because you'll be so uptight and you won't be relaxed. And the chances are as well, you'll spend so much time at nights in books and overloading yourself with work that you'll be so tired that you won't perform as well. You also might miss out on opportunities. Rather than just being open to the experience of placement, you might not be as open to going and observing something or shadowing someone, because you'll be thinking while you're spending the day observing and shadowing that person, you're not showing your educator your skills and knowledge in a certain area to get those good grades. And that's not what placement is about. Placements are an enormously great opportunity to experience what it's like to be a physio, experience patients, experiences, and just get under your belt as much mileage of being a physio as possible. So then when you start working as a band 5, it's not totally alien to you, but you've had chance to get hands-on and have those skills. You want to go on to placement just be wanting to show how enthusiastic you are, inquisitive you are, and work hard and enjoy it. Go in with a smile and enjoy the experience. It's just such a phenomenal opportunity that you don't want to miss out on those opportunities just because you're so focused on a grade. Also, if your placements are graded, you could be setting yourself up for a lot of stress and disappointment and worry when you do get your grades, because although they're very well moderated, there is always going to be an element of subjectivity. So you may well not be so happy with some of the grades you get because of interpretation of your skills, etc. But again, if you get so wound up with that, then you're going to miss out on just moving on, taking some feedback and being open to that feedback and how it might improve your practice. You might disagree with some of it. I'm sure you will do. We all do occasionally disagree with feedback, but don't be so closed to it. And don't be afraid to ask more information about that feedback. I've covered a whole load on placement, so I'm not going to cover too much on that one now. So overall, what I'm trying to say on this video is classifications will matter to you. You're a physiotherapy student, you're watching this video, which probably means you really are striving to be the best you possibly can, which is amazing. I was exactly the same, and I definitely chased those high marks because that's what I wanted. I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it. It was an element of a marker for me of how well I've done in my degree, but to be fair, slowly in my third year realised how little this married up to me being a good physio. And I had my best placements when I totally forgot about my grades and just focused on the actual experience of working on placement. So yes, they're important and they'll be important to you, and that's fine, but don't let that overtake. Don't let that stress and unhealthy drive for classifications and grades shadow and muddy the water of you becoming the best physiotherapist you can. Enjoy your degree. Enjoy and relish the opportunities and experiences that university has to offer, not just your physiotherapy degree. Focus on your physiotherapy degree and prioritise it above everything else. But don't forget, you have a life. You need to have personal time, enjoying trying new sports and societies, meeting new friends, making new enemies, learning from those experiences. They're all just as important. So, but overall, enjoy becoming a physiotherapist. When you graduate, you are not a finished article. When you've been working for 5 years, you're not a finished article. When you've been working for 30 years, you are not a finished article. You're always going to be learning. You're always going to be developing. And we all do those things at different times and different stages. These grades don't mark us as a great physio. They mark us on our academic ability at university and to gain a university degree. So, I think that covers everything. If you've got any questions at all about anything we've covered, pop them in the questions. Find me on social media. I'm on Instagram, on Twitter. I've got my business page on Facebook. But ask me any questions. I'm more than happy to help you out if at all possible I can, or I'll certainly be able to signpost you on to other places. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe, share the channel, share the videos to as many students. I'm really trying to get out to as many students as I can to help and encourage people with grades, with placements, all the interviews I've done. If you've got any ideas for any other videos that I can do, send them across, I'll see what I can do. So again, without further ado, thank you so much for watching, and until the next video, have a great university life.